I think there's probably 3 or 4 things that are important to keep in mind. The first issue is that anything that results in foreign policy from any particular government, whether it's a developed country or a developing country, is really based on the domestic policies of those countries. You can't have foreign policy without a foundation of domestic policy. And domestic policy then, in respect to climate, bears on the perceptions that the population of individual countries have with respect to the challenges posed by climate change, the costs and the benefits, and basically what is this going to cost to deal with it. I think that's true in the US, it's true in the EU, and it's certainly true in the BRICS countries, which is Brazil, India, China. And so the second thing is, I think, to realize that the major emitters that we're dealing with are competitors on the global scheme. So China, the EU, the US, Russia, India compete with one another politically, and they compete with one another economically. And therefore, whatever we do in terms of climate change, it's got to be in some sense what you might call be competition neutral. In that sense, there cannot be massive amounts of wealth moving among these competitors that would disadvantage one competitor versus another competitor. And so I think you need to kind of take that in mind. The third point is, I say a lot of things we're talking about in terms of organizing international regimes will be based around large-scale carbon markets or flows of money from Annex 1 developing countries to developed countries to developing countries to entice them to undertake particular kinds of domestic actions. Given the current world status right now of fiscal status of the developed countries, massive amounts of flows of currency working in those particular directions, I think, is not very viable, even if it's through a carbon market. So again, I think there's a difficult problem we face in bringing these large-scale economic and political competitors to the table to discuss climate change when there's larger political and economic issues that are on the horizon.